appreciate that. I really appreciate the speed at which the staff got their comments out to the public, so that it was there in time for the hearing, for people to have a chance to see where there was the issues that the staff had, rather than have it come with all of our other comments later on. I think it was real helpful for the public to have your comments along with the Planning Commission's draft, and to have both of those, just to have it so early and to have it so open. So thank you for that. Let's see.
So if you'd like to follow this structure, or if you had other ideas, that's kind of where
I think a question and answer is a good idea for today. As much as I studied and worked on this weekend, I don't want you to assume that I stewed on this at midnight on Saturday.
False assumption. Nor was I.
I think we can eliminate number 5.
Yeah, I dealt with that early on. We made a commitment to do this project several years ago, and I've been working on it continuously. So I think we've made a commitment. We do our work, and you guys certainly have done yours. The community's done theirs. I think they expect us to follow through, and I think it's timely. And we have other work ahead of us in the future. That we, after we're done with this, shortly be into comprehensive plan update work. And, so I think, whereas looking at the volume of information here and the amount of time it'll take to process it, this is kind of the stack we're going through just from the 20th. I think, it's an ambitious agenda to do the best job we can by the deadlines we set for ourselves. So, let's see, I had one quick question here. We had a couple people at the hearing talk about being members of the SPAC and the STAC Advisory Committee and the technical and the Policy Advisory Committee. We had a list, it's actually quite a while ago, and it's actually from last year, 11/1/07. I just wondered if that was still an accurate list, or more people had joined, or maybe they were talking informally, like they just came to the meetings and they remember.
Well, before I turn to Michelle, now I want to say the SPAC and the STAC was a concept generated through DCE. If you remember, Josh Peters was the planner of the day at that point, and we were looking at both the policy development and the technical, the science and the technical information. And we thought, now how can we best engage under growth management requirements frequent and often public participation? And how can we do bottoms up and fully vet this prior to it being drafted and taken to the Planning Commission? So we created the SPAC and the STAC.
Indeed. The policy committee had a core of citizen representatives, and I apologize, I didn't bring the list with me, but you have the list there with you, so you can see the representations, aquaculture, building industry, let's see. You could read to me, but the citizen representatives were the core of the committee, with then, yes, additional government agency and tribal representatives. The technical committee was formed not specifically based on representation of any particular organization, but more looking for diversity of technical expertise. There's been repeated concern expressed. I think we heard that on last Tuesday night at the hearing, that there weren't any shoreline property owners involved, which is not true. There were actually 4 members between the 2 committees that were shoreline property owners. One person in particular was on the policy committee, was given or was filling the representation called recent shoreline permittee. So by default, a shoreline property owner who had actually recently gone through a permit process. That was Connie Mugley. And then there were 3 additional representatives. Dick Broders actually was the building industry representative, who's a property owner. Larry Crockett, who was representing the Port of Port Townsend as a private individual. He's a shoreline property owner, as well as Michael Adams, who was on the technical advisory committee, is a shoreline property owner. So certainly we had involvement and participation by those kind of property owners. Not to mention, we felt that the realtor representation would would bring the interests of property owners as well.
We also have some leases of property and businesses that are represented out there on the property.
Yeah, yeah, so we tried to make it fairly broad, and you can see it's actually a pretty large number of people invited to participate, so 25 or like 45 people total when you include lead representatives, and then some folks opted to have alternates so that if they couldn't attend, they could still stay in the process.
Michael Blandon from Fish and Wildlife said he lives on the shoreline, and he wasn't on my list here as Fish and Wildlife.
No, he was not the specific staff that was representing Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, but we did, as I think it shows on the list, that we had DFW involved both at the technical and the policy phases, and the people, the individuals holding those seats sort of shifted over time as, staffing changes occurred at the agency, and that's true for several of the positions. The list you have, I think you said, was November '07.
Yeah.
The committees met through November of '08, so just prior to releasing the December preliminary draft. I could check records to see if there was a more updated list from that one you have, but I think that's the one.
Okay, this is more comprehensive. I just wanted to bring out that there were more than one shoreline property owner involved in this. We have one shoreline property owner on the board here, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, in the context of both the early SPAC and STAC, as we got down to when I made the list of the 8 areas of controversy, one of the things at staff level that we face, the three of us, in developing this draft for the Planning Commission, Stacie always has a docket of when staff's reviewing projects and where code is inconsistent or contradictory. We're obviously very aware of the changes from the old SMP and how it was regulating versus a new concept, the new guidelines, even as it compared to the draft that was prepared in 2000. The 2000 draft was more endangered species oriented, led to litigation at the state level prior to it being brought down to the local level. So it was kind of a moving target. We're also very sensitive to the complaints that people are telling us daily. Call that the public interest, politics.